Do you believe in the existence of extraterrestrials?
Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where and when you're watching this podcast. I'm Thomas Fessler, my friends, and this is Disclosure Tonight. Happy Friday, February 7th, 2025. As we race forward into the new year, who thought Disclosure could be moving ahead so fast? Well, it seems like it's kind of slow right now, but I tell you, folks, we've got so many things to talk about tonight. We've got a special guest in here. We're going to be having one heck of a good time. On that note, before I get too far ahead of myself, let me go ahead and bring up a list of all of our participants and welcome you into today's show. Let's go ahead and do this. Who do we have out there? Let me go ahead and find those drums and get them up and going. Oh, I know it's somewhere. Let's fix my sound so I can hear what's going on. Second here to get right. All right, let's do it. Let's see who the heck we have out there in our audience today. I want to welcome $70 Million Man X. Amiga Rules is here along with Andrew Morgan. Good to see you, actually, Andy. Anton Ghost is here along with Carl Joel Garrison. We've got Charmaine, Corgi Castle Long Shadow, and Cosmo Fang. Craig is here along with Craig Smith, Dana H, Dolly Farton. We've got Dragon Rider FPV. Yeah, exactly. Who else we have out there? We've got Drone Shots, Dude Abides, and Eli McGinnis. Well, I want to say hi to Eric Roth and the Gurus, and Firefly, and Frank Rappa. Good to see you, folks. Free Paul DeMond just popped in, along with Geraldine, Hemigod, Heiser, Jessica Jane, and Johnny UFO. The audience is picking up, my friends. They're piling in here for today's show. I love it. Juliana's here, along with Justin, Kane Northrup, and Kelly Broten, those piercing blue eyes. Good to see you, Kelly. The true blue is shining through, as always. King Bull's here along with Larky Derry. Lyle's here along with Michael Dymock, Michael Turtleman, and Ms. Cussout. How about that? I also see Nancy Kuzmano, Neil Morgan, Nicholas Urick's here, and Niles Guy. Well. Peter just showed up along with FaZe Will. Good to see you, Will. Philip Shepard and QSNs. We've got Ram, Robin, Rollins, and Sam Wallace. Sam's been here since we first posted the show earlier today. He's a serial chatter, my friend. Also want to thank Sean for coming out, Sean Rader, that is, along with Stefan and Stephen Forbes. We got Sunflower and Tamisha Bertrand all the way from the peninsula in Washington State. Who else we have out there? We've got the Chromosome Cowboy, The Life of Honky Tonk, Tony D, Toxic Revengers here along with Turtlehead. Well, we've also have Uber Hodler here, as well as Vern Dude, William Underwood, Woody Clar, and of course, Yellow Tommy Tanker, also known as Andy. How about that? We've got the whole crew here. But it's not just about the friends in the back, my friends. Sometimes it's about our friends in our daily panel. On that note, let's go ahead and welcome in our first panelist today, Andy W., all the way from Bristol, United Kingdom. Welcome, Andy.
Hi, Thomas. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Friday, I'm actually able to join you tonight. No work. Yay.
Yay. Great, my friend. Thank you for coming out. Also,
my pleasure.
Next, we have Ashley. Welcome, Ashley.
No place I'd rather be on a Friday. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, my dear lady, as well. Also, I want to welcome in Daryl Zernick from the great state of Indiana. I think I got that right.
Hey, Thomas, thank you. Looking forward to the show.
Oh, same here, my friend. It reminds me I need to get down to where it says Google Chrome and turn that audio down just a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Thanks for coming in today, Daryl. Also, Ed Brown coming in from the great state of Texas. Welcome, Ed.
Yeah, it's good to be with you tonight, Thomas. Looking forward to the show and going to find out if DOGE can save all that money out of the Pentagon that seems to be lost.
Oh, I think they may. I think we're finally going to get people in to actually go looking for it and actually reporting on it, Ed.
Yeah, that'll be good. We'll save a few $1 billion there, maybe $1 trillion.
Yeah, I wonder how many $1 billion toilet seats we're going to find. If it's gold, I hear Trump may take it and use it in the White House. Probably not, though. Thanks for coming in today, Ed.
Good to be here.
Also, coming from the great country of Canada, BC area, let's welcome in FreezerMan71.
Hello, Thomas. Good to see you guys. It's going to be a great show again, as always.
Thank you, sir. Also in the back, we've got our next friend coming in from the great state of Wisconsin. Let's welcome in Laura Campbell. How's it going, Laura?
Going great, Thomas. Anxious for the show tonight.
Thank you, my dear lady. Appreciate that. Our next friend is also coming in from Canada. Couldn't have a show with the man from the province where all the U's are silent. Let's welcome in Michael Sukloff. How's it going, Michael?
It's going good, Thomas. We're going to have a good show tonight.
Thank you, sir. We hope so. Next, if we turn the world upside down and shake it like a snow globe, look, we got, I could say none of your business popped up, but it's actually our dear Susan Ford. How's it going, Susan?
It's going pretty good down here. Lovely looking day outside, but yeah, no, I'd rather be in here with you.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Now, putting our spotlight on the Upper East Coast, we've got someone here who likes to call himself a masshole. Sergeant Daniel, USMC. How's it going, Daniel?
Outstanding. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you for coming in. What a great show. What a great day, everybody. And I could say, hey, Mike, Disclosure, where are you, buddy? Hopefully you didn't fall off a cliff or get pushed for that matter. Oh, you think so, Mocha? I hope not. On that note, we've got a barking husky here. Shh, I have nothing for you here. I've got an old cookie for you that you may not like, but I will give it to you. There you go, good girl. All right. Gotta have fun with it. Well, the next person I want to go ahead and call up isn't a usual panelist. It's our guest for tonight. I want to welcome in an entrepreneur. I almost call him a scientist for that matter. A man who's been working on a phenomenal UAP detection / hunting platform, who I actually first saw when they had the Soul Conference. I was down in Austin, Texas. Holy cow. Let's welcome in Daniel Hooper. How's it going, Daniel?
Thomas, thank you very much for being here. It's actually David Hooper.
Oh, I'm
no
sorry,
problem.
David Daniel.
It's all good. And thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here to talk about my work on the UAP detection system, how I got started working on the UAP issue, and what we're currently doing, and what my vision is for the future of disclosure with regards to UAP detection.
Have at it, my friend.
Yeah. So just to give you a rough background of who I am, my name is David Hooper. I am an engineer by trade. I have an undergraduate degree from the University of California, Berkeley, in electrical engineering and computer science. When I was there doing my undergrad, I worked mainly on drones, UAVs, right? I used to race them competitively, collegiately. I built them. We did different applications of drone systems, whether it be hot swapping drones, laser tag dogfighting, or large-scale drone racing.
Were you doing like FPV stuff?
Yes.
Oh,
I used
very
to
cool.
Fly competitively in Peru, across the country, at different colleges. I love flying FPV. It's a really fun pastime of mine.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know what FPV is, doesn't that stand for first-person video?
First-person view.
Gotcha.
So basically, you take your goggles and it's like you're sitting in the cockpit of the drone. And you're flying full acro, which is full manual, and you're able to do barrel rolls, flips, command the drone exactly the way you want it so that you can race through the gates and the flags and win the competition.
Very cool, my
so
friend.
I did that in college and a lot of UAV drone work. And my specialty is on embedded systems. So I did a lot of FPGAs, firmware engineering, reverse engineering. Right at the intersection of software and hardware is where I feel most comfortable and where I like to spend a lot of my time. And to actually go previously before college, ever since I was a kid, I used to love taking things apart. So reverse engineering is up my alley. And after college, I actually went to go work at a startup called Velodyne LiDAR. Velodyne LiDAR produced LiDAR systems for autonomous cars. So I was in charge of helping bring up a new sensor system at Velodyne LiDAR. My official title there was FPGA firmware engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, and my experience with sensor systems, I eventually left that engineering firm, and I got into real estate. So for the last 5 years, I've been doing rental real estate, developing units, doing remodels to support me. That's basically my income to support myself and my family.
Two additional people who are in this field of researching UFOs. One is Jeremy Corbell. He's a real estate agent, but also so is David Grush.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen the real estate theme with Bigelow and with a lot of other people. You have the guy up in Utah. What's
Brandon
his name?
Fugel?
Who owns? Yeah. So there's a lot of people using real estate to kind of support the UAP venture, which I totally understand. It works. And so that's what I do, mainly to support the UAP venture. And to get right into that, about how long has it been? Well, I'll give you the full backstory. In 2020, when COVID hit, I started getting into UAP, and it was actually because of Diana Pasulka's book, American Cosmic. I picked it up one day and I started reading it. And from there, it was just going down the rabbit hole. And man, it never ends, as you guys are all aware.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many different aspects of UAP, NHI, that you can get lost in it. So for me, to really ground myself, I wanted to familiarize myself with the community, just to get up to speed, but also ground myself in a way through my engineering background. And so what I did was, hey, me loving reverse engineering, working on sensor systems, working with things that fly in the sky, this is like a perfect cool thing that I can, apply my engineering skill sets in. So I started looking at the UAP detection issue and solutions that were out there in the market. And I started seeing all the different groups, organizations,
like
that were
UFO
out there.
DAT and different things along those things. Yeah.
You read my mind. So UFO DAP. UFO DAP was actually the first system or product and software that I found that I was like, wow, this is a really great way to introduce myself in here.
Yeah.
And I actually ended up later on meeting the lead developer of UFO DAP. His name is Ron. He's out in San Fernando Valley. A great engineer, very smart.
But some of the things I've heard from some of the people who've worked with the platform, it kicks out a ton of CSV files that you have to go manually parse and do everything with. So it's a good sensor-based system to try and find stuff, but the data platform is kind of immature yet.
Yeah, I would describe UFO DAP and the entire system as being categorized in three separate domains. You have the actual optical camera systems, which is basically primarily the all-sky camera and the pan-tilt zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the actual software that drives and monitors and coordinates and directs the cameras. And then you have his MSDAU system, which is an embedded electronics platform that houses various sensors to correlate the optical camera data with the accelerometers and magnetometers, or other types of sensors that he's getting readings from. So it's a great test bed, and it certainly can get you started. You can actually get really good data, but to really get a more complete picture of what's going on with UAPs, you need further sensors. And that's actually exactly what happened with me, right? To be very specific with that, I looked at UFO DAP and I was like, wow, this is great. But being an engineer and being into reverse engineering, I wanted to replicate the system, but do it, at my cost. That's basically what I did. I figured out all the camera systems. I bought it. I bought his software, but I basically did everything else myself, all the hardware and all the integration. And from there, to the point that I was making earlier, I started using it, but I found myself capped with the capabilities. So what I started doing was adding additional sensors. Namely, the first thing that I did was add a infrared camera, a thermal camera, so that I'm able to see in the long wave infrared spectrum. And with that took it up to the next notch, being able to have that capability to be able to see in infrared. As we all know, some of the most famous UAP videos are all in infrared, with forward-looking infrared, right? And I think I would bet a lot of money that some of the best videos that the government has are with the forward-looking infrared camera source. So if we really want good UAP videos, we're going to need to have the same type of equipment that the military has, but how do we reduce that cost? And so that's what I'm all in on. So to further talk about this system, along with the infrared capabilities, I added on different types of camera systems. So you guys are probably familiar with the Psionics Aurora camera.
I've got one sitting right in front of me on the desk somewhere. Yeah,
basically a digital night vision device.
Yeah,
it uses a CCD sensor, and it's sensitive to not only infrared light but some UV and regular visible color. So I added that on. And as I'm adding on more cameras, right, I started to see, well, I need to be able to have a way to pan and to tilt these devices so the UFO DAP system can start to command it, right? With the all-sky camera. The all-sky is seeing the entire sky, and as it pinpoints something, it sends the azimuth and elevation values to the pan tilt zoom. So it's able to do that with the off-the-shelf consumer product, the line of Dahua cameras that are repurposed security cameras that are used for UFO detection. But
are those the ones that are using the Sony Starvis sensor in them? Yeah.
Exactly, you got it. Very low light capable Sony sensors that are housed in the camera package unit. So those are great, but you need even more than that, right? And so as I started to add more sensor capabilities, I needed to start to develop the pan tilt functionality. And so that's what I started working on. I'm not a mechanical engineer by trade, but I know how to CAD. I know how to 3D print from my drone days back at college. And so I started to apply those skills to make a custom pan tilt unit to house all the various cameras that I started adding on to add that additional feature in terms of sensor capabilities. From there, after I had some more additional cameras aside from the pan tilt zoom and the all sky camera, I started looking at the MSDAU embedded sensor system that Ron offers on his website. I was like, hey, I should probably do something similar, right? Look at the environmental data from the environment, looking at electromagnetic field strength, looking at any radioactivity. And that's what I basically did. Basically took the inspiration from Ron's system and reverse engineered it and made my own MSDAU. From there, I was like, okay, I have this setup, and most people do this as a stationary thing, right, on a tripod, and they have it connected to a local area network with Ethernet. But I wanted this to be mobile. So what I did was I mounted all those cameras, all those embedded devices onto my Tesla Model 3. I designed a custom roof rack system as a test bed so that I can remove or add and modify with ease
different
components. Exactly. There we go. Yeah. Thank you for putting that up. And, oh my God, that was, in the beginning days. That's exactly what I did. And as I started to do that, I was just like, wow, this is so awesome, right? And I started testing, driving, just trying to see how the system can perform while moving, because you want to have that capability of having it readily deployable and being able to be mobile. That's really crucial, right? Because if a UAP is going overhead and then it starts to go away from you, right, you're limited with the data that you capture. So if you can start tracking it with a mobile vehicle, a land vehicle, that's right. You can gather more additional data. Right. And I'm already thinking, how do we expand this from land vehicles to marine vehicles? And then ultimately, the grand prize would be to put this on a UAV or some type of aircraft so that, you can then try to track that UAP.
Now, there was a sensor I had seen. Oh, God, this is probably about a year and a half ago. I know Tim Senor is in the chat right now. He's a guy who's been doing a bunch of research and has a bunch of equipment for going and finding these things. There was something that was running on Android that basically allowed you to go ahead and have like 6 or 8 antennas going around your craft. And from that, it would be able to triangulate the actual location of the object where you're at and actually plot out on the road of how you can drive to go ahead and find that object.
Yes, what that's referring to is the Kraken SDR system.
I was calling it I was thinking Hydra in my head, but Kraken, close enough, yeah.
Yeah, I could see why. So SDR, what that stands for is Software Defined Radio. That's the acronym for that. And all that basically is, it's a programmable radio device that you can actually digitally select the frequency that you're tuning into with the radio that's on board the embedded system. And so the cool thing with the developers of the Kraken SDR, they had a feature set where they were doing a passive radar implementation on that Kraken SDR. So they had multiple antennas, and you're able to actually over time track the location of an object that's operating in the sky using an active transmitting source such as an FM radio tower or digital television tower. A little tidbit behind that is they actually got a lot of pressure. I believe it was from the FCC regarding the passive radar feature set. So they actually had to remove that from their open source project because they would have been embargoed to sell that device had they not taken that feature out.
Which feature again did they take out? Sorry?
They took out the passive radar feature. So you can still actually find it in some repositories online, and then you can add it to software later on, but they don't feature that as like a...
They don't package it, but you can trace back through the Internet Archive to go ahead and find this stuff and recompile it with that functionality back into the platform again.
Correct. And the issue, it's mainly ITAR regulations. I was speaking to someone at the SEU conference last year in 2024 regarding, kind of the issues with that, why the government would not want people having that capability, being able to track things over the sky. But there's a really important person working on this, Rich Mandel, who has the goal of having a nationwide passive radar system by introducing a $250 product to consumers can buy and achieve this functionality. And it's something that I'm a big proponent of, that we have this capability. And that's why we have this we have several software-defined radios into our sensor systems to be able to do not only passive radar, but to be able to also look at ADS-B transmissions from any aircraft that are flying overhead that are transmitting that, right? So that we can exclude those known craft from actually anything that's can be anomalous. Those are two aspects of use cases of software-defined radios. And then lastly, the use case that we use for our third software-defined radio is for looking at frequency scans across the radio spectrum from about 0 to 6 gigahertz to see if there's any high power output of radio signals. Namely, the thing that we're looking out for is that 1.6 gigahertz signal that's commonly associated with Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah. We have some software logic that is just basically checking to see if there's activity there. But that's why you need software-defined radios in any UAP detection system to be able to, look at all those different variables.
Right. Which
you could see there on some of the sensor feeds that are coming up. Yeah. Aside from the software-defined radios that ultimately got introduced into our system, we also at some point, I think this was about year one, as I was working to develop the second version of the prototype, which was being moved from a mobile test bed on top of my vehicle, but down into a more stationary system. I added an atomic clock on board. And the reason why you want to have an atomic clock is so that we can do very precise timekeeping. And ideally, you want to have two atomic clocks, one that would be located within the UAP detection system, and another one being far away from that system that would act as a control or a source. And those two clocks would be synced in frequency so that if the atomic clock that's in the UAP detector has an experience, or you have an anomalous event occur, and there is a shift or a discernible discrepancy within the shift of measurable time, and you correlate that back with the control source of the clock. If it's more than the noise drift of the clock, then that might be some valuable data to correlate with the video data to show that there may be possible time dilation. And that's why we have the atomic clock on board too. A lot of experiencers report, if you look at the experiencer literature and testimony, that there is missing time associated with abduction cases, and whenever they're engaging with UAPs.
But if I can just touch on the missing time, from kind of the feeling that I get from this, and what a lot of people have been talking about, some of these craft are operating in a different dimension of time. So when you're in this particular craft, your actual time may be going faster than what's going on the outside of the craft. So there's this disparity of the time that's on the outside of that gravitational warp field to what's going inside. Is that the kind of stuff you're talking about?
Totally. That would be the extreme example. If you could possibly take an atomic clock that would be synced with another atomic clock, right? You could take it on board. I mean, that'd be the holy grail, and then bring that back. You would have very conclusive evidence that there's some time dilation if you were able to show that there is not any foolery or you were messing with the data. But in the more normal example, or something that what we're trying to show is that if you have this atomic clock within the detection system, and you at least, have a UAP come overhead, depending on how much space-time manipulation there is from the, and this is a theoretical, if the UAP is bending space-time, and that may have an effect relative to the clock source, then you may be able to measure that when you sync up back with the clock and see the difference. So that's kind of the hypothesis that we're testing to see if UAPs actually show any change within the local clock that you're having on board.
Right. Interesting. Have you considered having any kind of microwave or gamma radiation detectors as part of the platform?
Thank you so much for asking that. That's actually what we have on board. We have a 2-tube Geiger counter, which is able to detect not only alpha, but beta, gamma, and X-rays.
Right.
We have one that's a low sensitivity tube and one that's a high sensitivity tube. And basically one's able to measure like the background radiation. And also if you brought any radioactive material, it's able to detect that, and as well as any really strong radiation. And so, there's commonly associated with UAPs is the radioactive component, right? Whether it be a fuel source or maybe the red and blue shift effect, you might have some radioactive particles that are, coming by and affecting you, the effect of a human. People report sunburn, so we might be able to pick that up on the radioactivity sensor.
What I actually like about your platform is you actually have these kind of detectors on the outside of the vehicle, which is going to be easier to pick up that radiation versus on the inside of the vehicle, because I've heard of some other UFO people out there who are going out to look for this stuff. They'll have something on their armband, but there's a lot of material in between you and it, and it would be a lot less sensitive inside the vehicle than outside.
You are exactly correct. So alpha particles actually can't pass through a piece of paper, right? So you need the pancake sensor. It literally looks like a circle for the Geiger-Muller tube. You need that sensor to be exposed to the whatever the emissions are from that radioactive source if you want to pick up alpha particles. But for gamma particles, you don't really necessarily need to have that exposed. But if you want to look at all that, you will need that. That's correct. Yes. And so looking at that picture right there with the mobile test bed, from there, we went to version 2, which was actually to a more standalone approach where you can put it on top of a tripod, right? And then you can have it connected to a large battery bank that can have some solar input so that can charge, and it can be stationary, and you can have it at like a hotspot. And you'd also have comms such as Starlink, cellular, to be able to transmit any data back to cloud storage, and also remotely log in and see the view in real time. From there, from version 2, we transitioned over to version 3, which actually came about from Arrow's Gremlin project. The then acting director of Arrow, Tim Phillips, came out with their mission to support UAP detection through the Gremlin project. And once I read, that report or that announcement, I was like, hey, if this is what Arrow's going for, this is what the government wants, maybe I should transition over to a new revision of the sensor system to match the specification, right? So that's what I did. I went out, looked at what is the best bang for my buck Pelican case that I can buy that can fit the most amount of, volumetrically, how much can I fit in there and can still take it on as a check baggage, right? And so I found the Pelican Air 1637 Pelican case. And that was the one that I used for my now third version of the prototype. So I took all those different sensors and systems, all the compute, all the power delivery, networking, and I housed it inside there. And that picture that you see right there is actually some of my more recent work, where the thing with traditional DSLRs and cameras that are being used for night photography or videography of UAPs is that they're not sensitive to infrared light. So what you can actually do, and actually Mick West, I was looking at some of his articles, he actually had some conversion processes for the Nikon, I think P950 or P1000. I actually used some of his tutorials to figure out how to do it on the Panasonic GH6, which you see there. So I basically took the Panasonic GH6, which is one of the best 4K 120 frames per second video recording devices. And I took it apart, disassembled it, my reverse engineering mindset, and tried to determine where the sensor was so that I can remove the IR UV cut filter. It's basically this bluish looking, really thin piece of plastic looking glass. And when you remove that filter, it no longer blocks the IR light that's coming in to reach the sensor. So now you can see that. And so basically ordered that part from AliExpress for about $15.
So do you
And,
then put another filter over the lens to keep other daylight and stuff from getting in there because what you're looking for primarily IR?
Great question. So the filter that I purchased, or the glass that I purchased, when you remove the existing filter source and the existing glass that blocks that IR light, you do not want to mess with how the light passes through the sensor, right? So if you're removing a piece of glass that's normally it's all calculated into the length of light that needs to pass to reach the sensor. If you mess with that, the focus will be out of shift. So you need to reintroduce a glass that's full spectrum capable.
Mm-hmm.
And when you reintroduce that glass, it basically allows for that focus to not be messed up. So that's the full spectrum conversion, is basically swapping out the glass that's not sensitive IR and then putting in one that it is. And so now I have a 4K 120 frames per second digital camera that's sensitive to some UV, all visible color, and I believe shortwave infrared. And it's a great device because now you can telescopically zoom in with a telephoto lens. The only issue is when you're doing night videography is that you're dealing with the limitations of the lens, right? And the aperture. So that's the only considerations that are really limiting the capture of really, really good UAP data. But if you look on the other end, on the long wave infrared capabilities of thermal cameras, their f-stop is really, really low. So it makes total sense to me why, if you have a thermal camera at night, you're not dealing with the same attributes or the same deficiencies of normal cameras, of letting so much light in and waiting so much time for that light to come in.
Right.
Right. And I think that's really the holy grail. If there's something that can really push out to the UAP community, we need telescopic or variable zoom infrared camera functionality. That's what the military has on their Reapers, on their drones, on their aircraft, and we need to do the same thing. And that's what I'm trying to contribute, is how do we engineer solutions, bring that price down, see all the manufacturers and suppliers of all those different components to build something not only for the military or the government, because they already have that stuff, they pay an exorbitant amount, but how do we bring that price down to the consumer so that we can start empowering people to give them the data so that they can make their own determination. They can, disclosure is going to come from the people, I ultimately think, and that's my mission, is to bring that to the masses.
Yeah. So it's like race to the bottom. How can we get this great technology with all the features and functionality that needs to be out there at a price that the average hobbyist or enthusiast can go ahead and afford? Is there a target price point you're shooting for?
Totally. So what I envision is very similar to Mitch Randall. At the $250 target price, that's a really good entry point for people to get into with consumer electronics, right? So my vision for the future of disclosure, by empowering people with technology through data-driven results, is by having 3 categories of sensors that you can start to get into, not by buying all 3. You don't need to buy the whole $10,000 package. No, you can start with one technology. Let's say the first tech would be software-defined radios, which is basically Mitch's approach, right? You'd have a passive radar integrated embedded system, something that a consumer can buy for $250. It would add either functionality to your phone with an antenna, with a radio, to be able to do passive radar with a local transmitter. All the software would automatically pick up local active transmitters. It would automatically lock. There'd be a database with other users so that you can fill in the gaps in the map. That would be amazing. For $250, that's what we need. So that's the first silo, the first category, software-defined radios that can do passive radar for $250. The next category would be atomic clocks, either as an attachment to your phone or something that you could keep with you, and it would be synced to another atomic clock that would be at your home or somewhere that's a controlled source, right? The issue with atomic clocks is that at the price point for chip scale atomic clocks, CSACs, they're in the thousands of dollars, right? These little components that fit on a circuit board. So how do you drive that price down? Right now, the atomic clocks that we use are medium scale atomic clocks that are about the size of, like, a little bit bigger than your phone. Those you can find on the secondary and tertiary markets for a couple $100s, right? But we can engineer these solutions to drive down that price point. So that's the focus there, bringing the functionality of an atomic clock for precise timekeeping to the masses. So if people report, hey, I had missing time or this happened to me, let's back that up with data, empower our fellow brothers and sisters and humans to be able to make sense of what they're experiencing. So that's my mission. And then the last category, this last silo, which is the holy grail, which is no more video, potato phones with videos that don't allow infrared, because the glass, with all our phones have that glass that's blocking the infrared and UV light. So it would be really cool. We focus on long wave infrared. We build an attachment, and you can already buy these. You can buy basically a long wave infrared thermal device that would attach to your phone through USB-C. And the kicker for this would be that it would have an adjustable zoom lens. That's where the real money is at. And by money, I mean like the real moolah, or the real like kicker, or that's where we're going to see results. Because if we can start zooming in and we can start getting a better resolve of the UAP, we're going to see characteristics. We're going to see better shapes. We're going to see if it's a triangle, if it's a classic saucer, or whatever it may be, an egg. And then we can start, with that data, we can start informing ourselves what we're dealing with. And that's where I see the future of disclosure is humans being empowered by what's going up in our skies, right? So that we can not only determine what are the different crafts that are operating overhead, whether they're non-terrestrial craft or transdimensional craft, there's whole types of categories, but and who do they belong to? Once we start gathering that data, we can start figuring out, okay, what are the NHIs associated with that, depending on other data that's coming in from experiencers and testimony. So that's where I think we really need to go.
Yeah. So you've got the system to go ahead and drive all the different sensors, bring it together, do the recording, get it up into the cloud. What are you using as your base embedded platform to gathering? Are you using an off-the-shelf operating system, something along the lines of like Android or iOS, or are you getting to something exotic like a NVIDIA Jetson device?
Great question. Thank you so much for asking that. So when I actually started with Ron's UFO DAP system, right? And the criteria or the dependency for his software is that it has to run on Windows. You can do a VM image to be able to run it on Linux, but to not deal with all that, I just run it natively on a Windows machine or UFO DAP. So I can run the two cameras, all sky and the pan tilt zoom. But as I started adding more sensors, the UV, the psionics, the long wave infrared, and I added the radioactivity sensor, I added all the different atomic clocks, everything. I wanted to move away from Windows and work specifically on Linux. So right now I have two compute units of, like, I have a Raspberry Pi 4 and a Raspberry Pi 5.
Yep.
Pi 4 is pretty limited in terms of processing. Pi 5, you can add some additional modules to have more GPU power to be able to process that video. But for the stuff that I was processing from the sensors, it wasn't really much. It's just logging to a CSV file, the radioactivity readings into a log file. But for the camera data, you really want that processed in real time by an AI, right?
Right.
Through OpenTV. But ultimately, we need to move to Jetsons, right? Because that has the power to be able to process that data in real time and inform decision makers regarding, whether or not this is a threat or, all the different characteristics.
Right. And it runs Linux, and it's about $250 at least for some of the versions. So it's, again, in a reasonable price point for a lot of computing power.
Totally, exactly. We're going to school at UC Berkeley, especially with the types of classes that I was doing with embedded systems and the culture. I come from a hacking culture, reverse engineering culture. It's build fast, break fast, redesign, just always be going. And that's for me how I approach things, right? Just always trying to do something new and see what works and what doesn't work and scrap it and just keep going. And I think that for me has been really valuable in entering into the UAP detection space and trying different ways of doing things. I've messed up. I've run into problems hundreds of times, but for every time that I mess up, I'm learning something. And that's the really beneficial part that I'm figuring out what doesn't work. And I'm doing the hard work.
Yeah.
And what I'm looking for now is having other people join me, other engineers, experiencers, because we're going to need the whole gamut of people to be able to solve this problem.
And while it's taken a lot of time to get where you're at, if you stop, take a look back over your shoulder of how you got there, it's all a bunch of easy steps that you see now. Now it's about just taking the distance that you've made, bringing more people in, and being able to scale and conquer.
1,000%. That's exactly what my aim is.
Yeah.
Looking into the future. I'll be very honest. For the last 5 years, entering into the UAP community, I was a lurker. I didn't want to just be out there, publicizing my work. I just wanted to get a feel for, everybody. And the one thing I'll say about the UAP community, we have really big hearts, and we really care about this issue and all the different ways that it affects us. And I think that we need to remember that when we're talking with people who have experiences, right? And especially people that come at you wrong, or come at you mean. There's a reason for that. So I try to take everyone with grace and humility, and try to make friends and try to make win-win situations.
Yeah, you just got to take it all with a grain of salt. Don't let the trolls get you down, and just stay focused on your goal. And it sounds like you've been making some great progress. Now, in the conversation before we started, Andy, I see your hands up. We'll get to you in 1 second. But as we were talking about it, was that before you actually, at the first time that I had seen your kit and seen you was pictures at the SOL conference in Texas.
Yeah. Can you restate the question?
No, the first time that I had seen you was at the SOL conference in Austin, Texas. I didn't even know it was going to be going on. And it's great to hear that you found out before it happened, so you could get there and actually have your kit out there for people to come out and look at it. And it actually gave you an opportunity to talk with Dr. Eric Davis, I believe.
That's correct. Yeah, I spoke with Dr. Eric Davis, very intelligent, very informed, scientist, and he was giving me different recommendations or just different viewpoints from his background regarding the sensor suite. And, we were just discussing the UV and IR capabilities and how that's really needed. I brought up how put off space-time metric engineering paper, how, there's that possible byproduct of the red and blue shift effect, where if the UAP is, operating and it is bending local space-time, any light that's passing in and around it may be shifted in frequency. Right. And that would result in changing the color of the light. And so we need sensors to be able to detect that. That's what we were basically talking about.
Really quick.
And I was giving them a demonstration of the UV sensor, how we could pick it up. And this is something that we should be seeing from the UAP. We should be seeing a UV emission.
Yeah. Have you ever checked out the website UAPtheory.com?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Maybe a year or two ago. It has a lot of great information.
A lot of great information and all the research on there. It's been pretty much, if you want to call it, given a double thumbs up from Lou Elizondo and Christopher Mellon about the info you have on there.
Yeah, I think Lester Nair actually on X posted about, he has the specifications for different sensor systems, how the format should be. I just want to, hats off, give an applause to Lester, that we need that. We need to specify what are the formats that this data is supposed to come in, so that we as a community can all agree to something. So we have a standard, right?
Right.
And you see this in all types of communities, whether it be film or video, you name it.
Right.
It starts to cultivate, and then finally an industry review board comes in, or a certification. So I think that will naturally happen with the UAP topic, how to determine good UAP sensor data. And so I hope to be involved with those discussions.
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. If we could, Andy, you have your hand up for a question with David?
Really interested. Now, I love the idea that you're trying to get this to a marketable, fairly easy for Joe public to use. I'm over here in the UK. Unfortunately, my technical ability is just about to rewire an English plug. But I really love the idea. Now, I follow one of our friends from the show, Tom King, who's a sky watcher. He uses the UAP DAP and many other. He's actually doing a walkthrough on what he actually does with how he sky watches. Have you ever touched base with Tom?
I don't think so. I may have communicated with him on some point. I am on the UFO DAP Discord group, so that we all communicate there, whether it be our bug issues or feature requests to Ron, and he's really great with that support.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if I've had the chance to speak to an individual.
And also, we got obviously Tom said, we've got Tim Senior in who also does Skywatch, and I'm really interested because it is literally way beyond my technical capability. Like I said, I can just about rewire a UK plug. But as far as I'm aware, I don't think we actually have anybody doing the kind of thing you guys are doing over in America here in the UK. I'd love to see it, transfer over to this country as well, obviously, because we've got quite a history of ufology around here. So yeah, I'm all for it, and I hope you can actually bring to market at some point.
Well, thank you very much, Andy, for your comments and your opinions. I want to make this a worldwide technology, right? Whether it be for Americans or for Canadians, whether it be from people from the UK, we shouldn't have to necessarily limit the people who have access to this technology. Obviously, there is a price point. And one thing I want to make note of within the UAP community, the UAP community is very aware of grifting, right? And very aware of people taking advantage of people. And I want to be an advocate to say, it's going to cost money to do these things, to be able to build these technologies, but we need to be transparent. I think the reason why the UAP community gets upset and calls people grifters or, hey, where are they hiding, is because there's not transparency. And I think that's really something that we need to embolden onto our hearts or onto our shirts, and run with that and be transparent with the community, showing what we're working with, giving updates. That's going to build up trust. And so I want that for the whole world to show what we're working on. And we're going to need the support and the voices from the community to help inform how to build this tech, because this is something I said on a different podcast, but the community comes first. The technology comes naturally from the people. I'm a believer in that. Back in college, I had this vision board, and I wrote that down. And I think this rings true today for me, right? Listen to the people. And I think Steve Jobs even talked about that. So I'm a big proponent of that and hope to bring that to the market, to the UK.
But as you're going and working on this stuff, you're prototyping, you're building, you're ordering equipment, there's a lot of time and effort and cost that goes in and incrementally is adding up. So if there is a cost associated with equipment, just like any kind of electronics equipment, any kind of a platform, there's going to be an actual cost for the physical hardware, but there are these other operational costs and other stuff that kind of goes into it to amortize it into so many units over a period of time that you're never going to be able to get away from. It's just the economy of doing electronics, building a platform, especially when you're generating all of this data, and it's going to have to go up to somewhere in the cloud to be processed, to be stored, to be everything. And that also is an ongoing cost that's going to be there day after day, month after month, depending on the traffic and the CPU utilization that goes on, that no one's going to be able to get away from.
Totally. I'm in total agreement with you. And I think we have to be realistic about this, right? There's going to be costs associated with all the data that's being produced. It's going to be housed on some server. Someone's going to have to make a dashboard to be able to look at all the analytics and provide that to consumers at a reasonable price point for the value, right? As long as the value's there at a reasonable price point, I think consumers won't get upset and won't think they're grifting.
Right.
It's when
it's not grifting. It's like if they want to buy an iPhone or a Samsung device, they're going to have to pay for the electronics and all the stuff that goes into it. So I don't think you're at all in anywhere of what people would consider grifting. You're an entrepreneur, you're an engineer, you're investing into a platform that other people can get into it. But in any kind of electronics or observation platform, just like with a telescope, those aren't cheap. The sensors that go on telescope, those are freaking expensive, hundreds if not thousands of dollars to get it. So you're getting into this sky watching observation platform that no matter what you do, there's going to be a cost. And if there's grifters are out there, just as my grandmother would say, let it go in one ear and out the other and just ignore the idiots.
Yeah, good way to put it. So yeah, that's the mission, and we're looking to add on more people to the company.
Yeah.
Everything's been self-funded from my real estate ventures.
Nice.
But I'm very blessed to be able to do that. But as we scale, I'm looking to get further support and to do that in an ethical way, right? In a morally responsible way. I've been looking at, VC funding, and there's some VC interest, but you always have to give away equity with regards to that. And then you have the interest of the VCs. Is it aligned with the mission of empowering humanity, right? And that's something that I have to consider. So I've looked at SIBR as well and different grants, but I think ultimately I'm going down the right path, and I think it will be all right.
Well, I'd suggest actually going ahead, and I heard about this funding program in the United States called USAID, but I hear they're gone now. But what do you have? Probably 20,000 into this already, at least? Yeah, easy. And I don't even include my labor costs. No, I'm just talking hard costs for all the stuff you're doing, not including your time. And I was actually, my mind was saying 20 to 30, and I went back with my original. But yeah, you've got a sizable investment you've been putting into this because you see it's a need. It's something that we need out there because so much of the information about UFOs, even from the people who aren't in the government who are researching it, is still getting locked up in a second layer of Islami, you know what I mean? Another layer of, obfuscation, of secrecy that's keeping the truth away from everybody. And you're coming up with a platform, it really looks like, to go ahead and challenge that. I'm impressed.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for giving me the space and the time to be able to talk about my work and my mission.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, they can reach me on X. I'm at David Hooper with 2 R's. That's DAVIDHOOPERR. So you can find me there.
Gotcha. It only shows one here on.
David Hooper was taken by this musician.
Gotcha. Yeah, so David Hooper with 2 R's. We gotcha. We got a couple more. We got some more people in the back with their hands up. If you don't mind for some questions.
Not at all.
All right, let's go. Ed Brown, you're next.
Yeah, David, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. And earlier, Andy said that you were talking over his head. You're talking all over everybody's head in here.
Not mine.
So knowledgeable on this subject, but we really do appreciate it. I have 2 comments or questions regarding your earlier talk. First, on the use of the atomic clocks. Granted that atomic clocks would show you fractions or maybe even thousandths of a second difference, but for the typical abduction, is that really necessary? If you look at the classic ones like Barney and Betty Hill and some of the time loss that Chris Bledsoe had, I mean, we're talking minutes or hours. It would seem to me 2 Timex watches might give you the same amount of data in a situation like that. I'll let you answer that, and then I got one more question.
Yeah, you're completely right. I think for those cases, you might not even need very precise clocks. That is a very, those extreme cases where a lot of missing time takes place. But the thing that I would like to introduce is a standard or a way of not regulating, but coming up with a protocol or a standard of how to properly go about this, right? So if someone is going to have 2 clocks, what are the ways to record that data, right? And going with Lester's website where he has the specification for the formats, we need to standardize that. So someone comes in with 2 Rolexes, right, and say, hey, this Rolex was on my bed and then I had a UAP event and I got abducted, right? This one's 5 minutes off. Well, that's not calibrated, right? It's like there's all these questions that come into play that will bring down the validity of someone's claim. So having accurate, calibrated clocks and a standard that people can follow, and they can bring different types of devices as long as it follows the standard. We should be able to, look at their data and make some determinations whether or not they actually went through something. Right. So I agree with you. I think it's just providing that standard, starting to make something that we can all follow.
And if I could add something to that, David, before Ed asks this next question, I think when you were talking about the atomic clocks, it isn't necessarily just for abductions to that matter, but it's if you have a craft that comes close to you with its gravitational field and everything that it's doing, that could affect your local time in a fraction of a second because this thing is going by at its distance, not like you're losing hours to that extent or days.
Correct. And that was the initial root cause for why we introduced atomic clocks, to see if a UAP overhead can have that effect on that relative time source.
Well, I think actually that's a good answer. And actually that kind of leads me into the second question, talking about shifts of time and frequency. And let's go to light for a second. You know, Spielberg did a real good job of telling us or showing us the Doppler effect for the craft that were in that movie, you know, coming or going away. But my thought is, if they actually can change the shape of the sound or the curve, would it not be possible then for the craft to hide itself by simply shifting its frequency, so that we couldn't? It would still be there, but we couldn't see it because it would be outside our frequency range. Does that make sense, or what do you think?
100%. This consideration is crucial when determining the intent of any UAP craft, whether it be intentional or non-intentional, right? And as we start to gather data from these qualified set of sensors, we can make those determinations, right? Is there the intent of cloaking? Is it a byproduct of the effect of the way they're manipulating space-time? We don't know until we get this data and we can start to answer those questions. So it's totally possible. And the only way you're going to find out is if we start collecting that data and seeing, okay, what is the data telling us? So that's the way I would approach that.
Well, thank you for your time. I'll toss it back to you, Thomas. I appreciate
Thank you very much. Mark Kyle, I believe you're from Australia. Your hand's up next. You need to unmute yourself. Mark, you there?
Yeah, sorry. I couldn't find my mouse. David, I've been doing radio for 30 years, comm service, all that sort of stuff. Well into electronics, also do astrophotography. So I know exactly where you're coming from, big cameras and IR filters. But you're talking about the atomic clock. I mean, it's an easy fix for everyone. You're just going by GPS DO. Now, they are 10 parts per trillion because they work off the timing on the GPS satellites, which is basically the atomic clock. And they're only like $100. So, and you can output either one pulse per second or 10 megs. So if everything locks to 10 megs, that's a standard worldwide. All of our comm service gear all have 10 meg inputs. And that locks you to an atomic clock at any time you want. So a GPS DO solves that problem, and they're relatively cheap. All you need is a GPS antenna and the box, and it comes out at 10 megs, and you plug it into whatever reference you're using inside your box.
Thank you for bringing this up. So this is actually a really important component of the atomic clock setup that we have. You need to have as a reference source, right, a GPS signal that you can then have that timestamp of that local relative time. But the issue with the GPS is that over time, it may drift, right, depending on the oscillator that's on board. So if you have a 10 megahertz signal coming from that atomic clock, it will keep it stable more accurately than the GPS DO. So that's the reason why we have that atomic clock, to be able to have a stable reference source that more accurately keeps track of those discrepancies in time if there was local space-time manipulation. But no doubt, what we're doing is having that initial reference from the GPS and then having it tuned to the clock so that over time it's accurate and stable.
The GPS DOs don't really change that much. I used to run a rubidium standard. So
yeah. Okay, so they're using the rubidium oscillator, which is the same thing that the atomic clocks use. So
I used to run one, and in the end, I mean, they do drift, right? They do drift.
Yeah, they do.
The GPS DO has never. I've got several of them for different functions around the workshop, but I just come into a distribution amp and peel it off to all the different, spectans, comm service monitors, all that stuff, and they don't really shift because the GPS system is tied pretty well. So, as I said, the drift is 10 parts per trillion. So it's pretty low.
Yeah. So this is really great that we're having this discussion, because as we start to talk about the use of the GPS as a reference source, right? What do you do when you get into GPS denied environments, right? Where you don't have that GPS signal. So all these considerations factor into the different environments. Or what if the UAP blocks the GPS signal, right? Or overwhelms it where you're not able to get that. So great. I love this.
I suppose we got Skinwalker Ranch stuff, where all the GPS is all stuffed up at Skinwalker Ranch, So when something is happening, all the GPSs seem to cock up. So I mean, you're right, but I mean, for the general Joe Blogs who lives down the road who wants to set one up, I mean, a GPS DO would be perfect. But I mean, for a more professional use, yeah, maybe a rubidium standard or something like that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I want to bring that professionalism down to the consumer by driving that price down lower and lower and lower through engineering, right? That's we need to give that to people. That's what I believe.
And sometimes it's finding that specialty tool that doesn't cost a lot of money. It's a little bit less accurate, but it comes in at 1/100th of the price.
My original rubidium standard came from a cell site out of the US. So that's where mine actually came from. And it cost me a mozza. It cost me, even secondhand, cost me like, it was about $1,500 US. Wow. And back then, like, I'm talking 25 years ago, that was a lot of money. So, but yeah, since then, everyone just uses GPS DOs because we don't have GPS values here. So, but yeah, I swapped away. I've still got it somewhere, but I never use it.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear that price point back then. Now you can find a rubidium oscillator, right, an atomic clock, secondhand on eBay for a couple $100. You can really score some good deals. Yeah. What was the size of that rubidium oscillator back then? Was it a pretty big package?
It was a 2 RU rack size. So that'll give you the idea, and it was beautifully built.
About this big, this wide, and this deep. Pretty decent in size. The 2U, yeah.
How far the technology has come, where now a medium-sized atomic clock is about the size of a phone, right? For a couple $100, you can get them. Yeah, but they come from off-the-shelf consumer products in audio technology, right? Whether it be a DAC or cellular systems. I know those are often used, and they're used up in satellites as well.
Nice.
Yeah, well, we haven't used rubidium. I haven't, and certainly anyone in the comms industry hasn't used rubidium for 20 years. But they're all GPS. But yeah, it's interesting that it's come down so much in cost now. Very interesting. See, I've never looked at the rubidium ever since. So excellent. And I saw you on Twitter, by the way, at that Sol conference, and I did actually add you to my Twitter thing as soon as I saw it. I've been meaning to send you a message because I want to set up something at my farm, and I'm using a Psionics camera, and I've just ordered one of these new Night Storm low light ones that are on Kickstarter. That comes next month, I think. So, because I get some good stuff out of my farm. It's Bortle 1, so it's pretty dark, and we can see a lot of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to your stuff. Thanks a lot for coming on the show too.
Oh, thank you for the great questions and for engaging in some cordial, respectful conversations. And another thing I want to say, post your photos and your videos once you get that new that equipment. And one last thing I want to say, for the Psionics Aurora, we're building an attachment that will interface into the LCD display module where it connects into the main housing of the camera body so that we can get HDMI out from that. Because right now the issue is, right, from a Psionics camera, you have to take it from the SD card and then... Or someone gets another camera recording on the LCD screen. No, we got to do this professionally as engineers and get that raw video source so that we can then use that to operate our autonomous tracking system. And then, so we're working on that right now.
You need a battery slug as well. You may have to do a modification to the case to get the power to be able to go out, but I've found battery slugs that are out there that'll match the same battery configuration that are in the device that you could then hook up to a power bank or something else to basically be able to keep this thing powered without having to just run off the internal batteries.
Yeah, 1,000%. We actually made a little makeshift 3D printed part that's able to give the correct voltage so we can continuously power it.
Nice.
And then the other thing is just the micro SD card capacity. I think it maxes out at 512 gigabytes, but that's something also we had to figure out as well. If we want to use the Psionics Aurora brand of cameras long term in these systems.
Have you thought of reaching out to the people at Psionics and their engineers? Because there's another company besides Psionics. There's also one called Luna Optics, and I know the guys over at Luna Optics as well. So there's a lot of great companies out there who make this kit.
Yeah, Luna Optics, I need to check them out. Psionics, I did a reverse engineering deep dive on them when I bought the Psionics camera, just trying to figure out what the specifications of the port was, right? If there was any pinout mappings. I couldn't find that. What I did find was that when they first announced the Psionics Aurora at like CES, they were going to have that interface port have the functionality to add add-on modules, right? So it can have different functionality, and nothing came out of that. So there is the ability to add more features, but it'd have to be engineered. But as far as sightings go, I haven't really developed a relationship with them.
Yeah.
I know you can get their cameras for wholesale pricing, but it's probably
But you can also get really cheap, great deals on refurbs for like a quarter of what you actually pay for a new unit. And I've gotten refurbs here, and it's basically looks like a brand new unit.
That's what I did too.
Good move on that one. Nick, you have your hand up next. All right.
Yes. David, like, have you seen where the UAPs actually transform, and like, have you developed technologies to basically like determine if it's really a UAP or if it's really something like it transformed into a drone or a helicopter or something like that? Have you developed that?
So I know, Nick, really quick, I can help out on this one. There are some certain object recognition abilities that are part of the UAP DAP platform that's out there. They're not the greatest. I guess Nick is looking, are you using any kind of image recognition technology for your platform?
Yes. So as you were saying, Thomas, the UFO DAP does have an analytics section where you're able to discriminate against different types of classification of objects. Yeah. It uses, I forget which model it uses, but it's able to recognize a bird, an airplane, or an unknown object, right? Aside from that capability from UFO DAP, a lot of the work that I've been doing has been in integration, adding more features, getting a rock solid development platform to be able to add equipment. I'm not an AI ML engineer. I could probably learn about it, but my best use of my time would be what I've been working on. So no, I haven't had the functionality on the back end or to integrate that. I've been using primarily UFO DAP's features for that.
But if there was a AI ML engineer out there who's interested at working on this kind of stuff with David, you can get a hold of David Hooper with 2 R's over on X.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely. Laura Campbell, you have your hand up, my dear lady.
Yeah, hi, David. I'm wondering if you know where Arrow is deploying their, what's it, Gremlin project? I heard rumors of a secret location in Texas, but can you share with us? And also, where have you gone for perfect sky viewing?
Good question.
Thank you for your questions, Laura. Yes, I do know where Arrow initially went to explore the UAP detection Gremlin project solution. They have a field site in Texas, and they partnered with Georgia Tech to be able to develop that technology. That was from the first initial report from Tim Phillips. I forget how long ago that came about, maybe a year ago. But more recently, they came out with a report talking about the features and the capabilities of the system, and their system is pretty good. I mean, they have all the basics, right? They have radar, they have long wave infrared, they have regular visible cameras. I don't believe, I have to double check if they have any alpha, beta, gamma, X-ray radioactivity detection sensors.
Right.
But they don't have atomic clocks. That's one thing that I did want to point out.
Yeah.
And the thing that they do have that normal consumers, it's a lot harder to get, is active radar. They do actually have a couple active radar components in their representation of their system. And you can actually get an active radar. If you look at the Tedesco brothers out in Long Island, they have their RV that's outfitted with a bunch of sensors. It's also a mobile platform. They got these 2 marine radar units, and they positioned them, one as like an X-axis, one as a Y, to be able to get these 2 axes to be able to see the data. And that's a pretty good way to approach it. They had to get an FCC license to be able to do that. So that's the requirement. But we were pretty kind of stuck on the active radar because, it's for military applications usually, and they don't want the general public having that. But that's where passive radar really shines brightly. We just need to drive down the price point and, engineer the solution for consumers. And your follow-up question was, where have I gone to test out the system? Is that correct? Yes. So thinking about all the places I've been to. So I've been with local. It's generally tied, or it's divided up against. It's tied to experiencers or tied to locations. I've generally done more work with experiencers. My first initial test was with Robert Bingham. He's been chronicled by the LA Times as the UFO summoner. I met him a couple years ago at a. Yeah, I know he's great. I love Robert, and I got to know him, and we've been out to a couple sites, and we've been able to capture some data. I remember the first time I went with him when I took my rig version 1, which was on my test bed on my car. We got this black orb that was, just cruising through the sky. I've talked on some other podcasts regarding what happened, the anomalous events that took place on the equipment, my laptop, when we saw that black orb. And then what other places
you got to
I've been
tell
to.
us. You got to tell us.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I
gosh,
can get
yes,
into
please
it.
do.
Okay, so I was there with Robert, and there was a couple other people that he invited. I'd say there's like 10, 15 of us. And this is right in Los Angeles, right by Dodger Stadium. There's a public park nearby. I was there with my car, with the test bed, all the sensors. And Robert's doing his thing. He's getting in his, what he says, quotes, a telepathic connection, and to be able to call down the UAP or have them show up. And a few minutes go by, and then out of nowhere, I hear someone say, "Hey, look, over there by the north where the mountains are at, there's a black orb." And I take a look, I'm trying to find it, and then there I see it, this little black orb. It looked completely devoid of light. There was nothing coming in or out of it. It just looked completely spherical. And so at the time, my UFO DAP system that I had, I just had the all sky camera, the pan tilt zoom, but I had the EMF and the radioactivity sensors on board. And so I had to manually position the camera because UFO DAP didn't pick it up. And so I was able to track it. And once I started tracking it on the PTZ, I was able to get a better resolve on it. And so as I start seeing it, I'm tracking, manually controlling the PTZ. I'm zooming in. About 30, 45 seconds goes by, and then boom, my MacBook goes black. And I try turning it back on, and I see data corruption right smack in the middle of the screen, like a hard drive with like a exclamation mark or whatever. I was like, this is so weird. Like, why is this happening out of nowhere? This has never happened to me, right? I don't have any magnets near my laptop or whatever. So I was just trying to troubleshoot, trying to get my MacBook back up so I could see the live video feed and see if I was still able to track the black orb. About a minute and a half goes by, and I'm not able to, troubleshoot or get the MacBook up and running. Just kept getting that same error message. And then someone says, "Oh, it left," right? And we're not able to see it anymore. A few moments go by, and pretty much after it leaves, the MacBook comes back online like nothing happened. It was the weirdest thing.
Have you had that problem with your MacBook in the past or any time since
never
then?
Never in my life, and afterwards, never again.
Yeah.
That's not normal, right? If there's data corruption on the OS or your data, you'd have to repair it. It'd give you some error. It just doesn't automatically fix it, or doesn't usually fix itself. It was just weird. And so that always was in the back of my mind, right? Was that the UAP? Right? I don't know. But I was concerned with getting the live data back online or back up on the feed because I remoted into the one of the compute units that was in the on board the computer on the test bed. And then I was mainly concerned about that and making sure that the data was still intact and it wasn't messed with on board the system.
Yeah, talking about black objects up in the sky really quick, another thing, not sure if you've looked at it really quick, is the Ukraine National Academy of Sciences Astronomy Division. They put out a couple reports on the things they've been seeing up in the sky, and they call those black objects phantoms, actually.
Phantoms.
Yeah,
that's a very appropriate
because they don't go ahead and
that.
reflect any light. They're completely black. And I have video footage that was taken in Malta from an air show in September of 2021 that has one of the phantoms hanging up over a building, just sitting there, almost looks like it's kind of tumbling in place. and then just locked off in the distance, stationary. But then we've got 3 of them that take off from another video, and actually one of them goes off in the distance, and it comes back and it dive bombs within 70 feet of a front of a jet fighter that's going about 450 miles an hour. Based on my estimates, this thing was going anywhere between 11 and 14,000 miles per hour. So these things are definitely moving faster a lot of times than what the human eye can detect.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that they were referred to as phantoms. Now I know that.
Yeah, but check out that paper. They've got a lot of good science in there. You know, it's good enough science where it warranted Sean Kirkpatrick to drive 3.5 hours from D.C. to Avi Loeb's house, to go ahead and talk to him about it on his porch for several hours, and for Avi to go ahead and write a rebuttal that evening and to publish it out, because apparently the science was wrong. But if you're getting that much pushback that fast, there's something there.
Yeah, there's a there. Since that first initial encounter, I have visited Chris Bledsoe, spent some time with him. He had a Skywatch event after he was having an event at a local church by where he lives in the general area, and I went to go attend the event. It was open to the public. You had to pay a ticket to attend or whatever, and got to meet him, got to show him my system, and he was intrigued about it. And we talked more to see if we can help each other collaborate. And the next day he went out to lunch and got to know each other a little bit better. And I spent the day with him, and we set up the system up at his property, and we had it run all day. And just we're talking and getting to know him better while the system was running. And I didn't pick up anything anomalous while the system was running there during the duration of the time I was at his property. But another weird anomalous experience that's not tied necessarily to the operation of the system, but it was kind of like how I'm mentioning the MacBook. It wasn't until we were wrapping up for the night, right? It was already probably like 8 or so, and I was leaving when I started powering down and putting away all the sensors and wrapping up, when I started to see things up in the tree line, right? All these different lights. And I talked about this on some other podcasts, right? Like the alignment, right? Did I necessarily have an effect coming from a standpoint, a very analytical, very scientific approach, to have an effect on the vibe that Chris was trying to set up, where they would normally, UAP would come and visit or show up? So that's my considerations. I wasn't sure if it was trying to, tell me like, hey, stop trying to focus on the sensors and just enjoy the experience or whatever. But
right.
I think that's a really important thing, that the alignment really has to match.
I've heard that from other Skywatchers in the past, where they're out there for hours waiting for something to happen. And as soon as they go there, they're tearing down the equipment, then something shows up.
Yeah, I've experienced it firsthand. I don't know if that's necessarily correlates with, the phenomena is intentionally trying to do that. I need some data to back that up, but from my experiential, witnessing of that, kind of my intuition was telling me something, right? Like, where are you at internally aligned? What's your mission internally and outwardly? Outwardly, I was working on the system, just trying to focus on the sensors. I was all focused on that, also trying to get to know Chris, but internally, what was that matching up? Was I in the state of love, like you were mentioning earlier, right? Was I channeling that, or was I in that mode? I would say I wasn't. I was just being really analytical, and I think maybe that had an effect.
Now, what if that love that we go and project out there and everything, it's like fishing. Maybe this is something they feed on. You never know.
Yeah,
we can think it's good, but we really don't know.
Totally. I think Diana Pasulka talks about this, right? Especially with engaging in CE5. We have a response, and we put our humanistic labels on it, right? We feel love, or we like what's happening, but we don't really know what's going on. Are we getting radiation burns? What's the true intent? And that's a tough thing. What is the effect of putting out love out there, and what's the purpose of that? Or what are UAP or NHI, what are they after, right? So there's all types of metaphysical considerations there that we can get into. But the last thing I want to say was regarding alignment and other, as you said, other Skywatch teams also having this issue when they start to put away the equipment. I think this is something that we need to solve. And the way to solve this is by monitoring the participants who are engaged in the summoning act or in the protocol, right? Part of the protocol needs to incorporate technology that's looking at biofeedback to see if the brain waves are in a state that is love or, in that consciousness realm where we're open to receiving, and also with our effect of our intent. And one way to possibly measure that is looking at through random number generators and seeing if we can have an effect on those from going off the normal average noise that's being produced by those, right? That's also something that I'm starting to look into, incorporating those sensors into our detection systems.
Excellent. Excellent, my friend. Great ideas all around. We got 3 last questions for you. Let's go to Corporal Abe, and then Daryl, and then Ed. Abe, welcome back.
Hey, guys. Hey, Thomas. Thanks for having me. Sorry I'm late. I actually shot you a last-minute email. But Dave, nice to meet you. I'm also named Dave, so it's always great to meet a fellow UFO community Dave. A question from the front chat from Rebecca K was, like people like me, if you're not on X anymore, is there another place, channel, platform we can find you and your information? Check out some more about your project.
Great question. Great question. Thank you for asking, Dave. And so it's a great name. We're very blessed with that name. And to answer your question, I currently don't have any other forms of contact other than my email, but I give that more privately, people who are trying to contact me. I will be working on my website to help facilitate the information transfer to the UAP community to see, what it is that we're working on, what our mission is, where we're currently at with the startup in terms of personnel working on it. As we start to add more people, as we start to get, more help from contributions or financial support, I want to make that apparent and transparent. And so from there on the website, there'll be some ways to connect with us. We'll probably have some branding, some public-facing X or website accounts so that you can reach out to us.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. I hope to see you more in Thomas's community, man. It was great to hear about your project. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you. Daryl Zernick, go ahead.
Yeah, Dave, man, you're right up my alley on this. I was the Senior VP of Sales and Marketing for LG and Samsung's video surveillance products. So everything you're talking about is something that I wish I had mounted on my chimney, on my roof. But more importantly, I'm going to send you a message, I guess through X. It won't come from me. But it will be asking for your email address just to talk about some ideas in regards to getting to that price point.
There we go.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Daryl. I really appreciate that. I look forward to collaborating with you and seeing if there's anything we can do to bring that price point down. I certainly think there is things that we can do, right? Especially teaming up with manufacturers such as LG, right? They have a lot of industry practices and processes and systems that I currently don't have access to, but it's all about learning. This is my first tech startup, and so I'm ready to learn and to do the grunt work, be in the trenches, and figure this out as we go along.
There's nothing like COTS, customizable off-the-shelf technology.
Totally. I mean, to be straightforward with the UAP community, that's where everyone's at in the UAP detection front. I think the only organization that is really pushing the envelope is the Galileo Project. And the Galileo Project, as an academic endeavor, right, with what they're working on, they have the faculty, the staff, the undergrads, the grad students, PhD. So they have the manpower to be able to do that, and they're able to write papers. But ultimately, for the field sites that they're coded around 250 to 500K for the large ones, now they've come out with the 25K and the $2,500 differing levels of technology for being able to detect UAPs, right? Bringing down the cost, but reducing the scope of the sensors. They're putting in a lot of good work, and they're actually leading the way to be able for other players who are having their own startups, such as myself, to be able to make headway. So I'm really grateful for Avi and the Galileo Project and all the students that are working on that, because they've really helped inform my decision-making process. And I'd love to see their work and everything they're publishing, all their white papers. Wes, is also, I've talked to him in the past. He's the one leading the UAP detection project there. And what I really want to say regarding that is that the consumer off-the-shelf products everyone's using, right? That's how the Galileo project started as well. That's how I started. Ultimately, there's going to be that transition over into the real engineering where it's no longer taking consumer off-the-shelf products and integrating them, right, and making these technology embedded system suites, but real engineering, making the PCBs, making the camera modules, real design. That's the holy grail. Because through that, you bring down the price point. Once you start to mass produce these, you can then bring those costs down and give those savings to the consumer. So I think that's where I see this going with the help of the Galileo project and others. And so that's where I want to take this.
Excellent. Thanks for that insight, David. And last question, Ed Brown.
Well, David, again, you're really impressing us with what you've told us tonight. And I think it won't be long that you're going to move from worrying about the price to buy things to start tinkering with, and more concerned with how much you're going to sell them for, because you're going to be on the selling end of this technology, I think, very quickly, and probably be richer than all of us put together. Okay, I'd like to bring us back to callers again just for a minute. And I had a couple of thoughts. You were talking about that black spot you saw. Could that possibly be the absence of any reflection that as a result of an attempted cloaking? I've always wondered if you could completely cloak out the return from a ship, if you'd be able to actually see through it, or it would just be a void in space. So a quick answer on that, because I got a follow-up question.
Yeah, I totally see that being within the capabilities of an advanced civilization, or, if these UAPs are manipulating space-time and they have the capability to cloak themselves, like that's a no-brainer, right? Look, if you put yourself in that standpoint as a higher dimensional being or a really advanced civilization, it has to engineer that, right? When it comes down to what type of craft, whether it be an orb or be like a real big craft, I know this is specifically for the Phantom. As I'm starting to write all the different aspects within the UAP community that goes into like, hey, what could this possibly be, these orbs? I really like the one by the UK gentleman who argues and hypothesizes that this may be a defense network for Earth, right? That totally makes sense. I know we were joking and non-joking earlier about Earth being somewhat of a experimental lab, or, like a zoo
farm
for humans, a farm, which, if you look at the ancient accounts of human creation, we start to get into that. But to digress, it would make total sense if Earth is quarantined and you don't want other civilizations or other people messing with your project. You'd want a global defense network, a basic security 101. And so I can see there also being that cloaking functionality for those orbs that are part of that hypothetical defense network, so that the humans don't know that the orbs are watching them, right?
Yeah,
but sometimes maybe
it could be a case where, you were saying that they came after you were taking your camera equipment down. It could be the case they've been there all along, and they just weren't letting you look at them when you were trying to photograph them. Once you remove the ability to photograph and capture what they're doing, they turn their lights back on, so to speak. Which brings me then to this other question, and this maybe you have to put on your philosophical hat instead of your scientific hat, but why do they pulse? Why does the amplitude of the light pulse when we're looking at them? Are they sending us a signal? Is that we're transmitting our tail number to you, or what is the reason for that?
Not all of them pulse.
Yeah, no, I agree. Depending on the account, depending on the data, some may pulse, some may not. But if I'm putting my hypothetical lens on and just thinking about communication standards from a higher dimensional being or an advanced civilization of beings, bringing it down to a lower level for humans to be able to grasp. Well, how would they do that, right? Is there some type of communication going on with the pulsing, if that's being seen? And how would we even be able to read that? Do we have sensors that's able to pick that up? Can we communicate back, right? This is something that the CTO of Enigma Labs, we were kind of joking about this one day about using software-defined radios, not only to receive signals, right, for passive radar, but using X-band transceivers, software-defined radios, to be able to pick up any X-band transmissions from UAPs. and to transmit back. But what would you transmit back, right? Can you decode their transmission if there was one? I have and this is really where my brain's going. The Steven Spielberg movie kind of alluded to this with the color system, right? Where they're trying to encode information with colors. I would really want to get, and I plan on doing this, having an RGB laser system that's able to project out RGB light code, right? Basically, if you can encode information into that light and use that out to send signals directly to the UAP while we're tracking it, right? And send different color of light to it.
Now, something Dave Mason did in the past, I talked to him about it before, he actually created a system that would actually take the light he was receiving from an object that they were observing, it would be converted into sound and sent right back to the object. Shooting lasers in the sky can be difficult because of aircraft and other stuff, but he got around that using sound.
Wow. That's I actually heard about that. Remember that. Yeah, there's the considerations with the FAA. You know, you don't want to be blinding pilots, so you really got to be careful with that. So maybe we can get a license to do that in a controlled manner that would be heavily regulated, especially, you know, looking at lasers in the non-visible spectrum, right? Whether it be a UV laser or an infrared laser, maybe UAPs are trying to communicate with that, and we can't even see that because we don't have the cameras. But that's why we want those cameras. Right? There's phases to this that we want to get into. And if I sent you over my 3-pager regarding the system and where we're trying to take it, right? Like ultimately we're in the detection phase. Mm-hmm. But at some point in the future, as we start to really have an awareness on the detection front, where does that leave us? Do we want to communicate with UAPs technologically aside from the channeling and from the summoning? And what does that mean for defense, right? For national defense? I know the very simple thing is, can we even defend against these things? Those are the hard questions we need to start looking at. And I think that's for further consideration down the line, but who knows?
That's all the questions. Yeah. It's been great having you on, David. Lots of, you're working on a lot of great stuff, my friend. Holy cow. Amazing.
Thank you so much, Thomas, and for everyone who came up and asked questions. I'm very thrilled, very humbled to be here, and I can't wait to be back on at some point in the future to give you guys updates and share.
Oh gosh, yeah, door is open. We'd love to have you back again, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and cover some other UFO news now. I think, Mike Disclosure, are you in the back, Mike? Are you there? I see you're muted. You may or may not be there. I may have to call him up.
No, I'm here. No, I'm here. I'm muted, yes. I listened very carefully to David. Great presentation.
Yeah. I'm so glad that I saw David go ahead and post on Twitter, because as soon as I saw that post, the first thing I did was send you a DM, then went and followed up and sent you an actual message saying, hey, I sent you a DM. Let's hook up on this.
Yeah, thank you for following up and being there to offer me a space to be able to talk. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much, guys, for tonight. And I'll see you next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, David. Absolutely. Wow.
What a great... We appreciate it, David. Thank you.
Yes.
You're welcome. See you guys.
See ya. Thanks. Thank you very much for coming in. Mike, what a great conversation.
Oh, it was. It really is. And it seems that the audience in general are more interested in this type of technology lately. Privately. So that's a change, I can tell you. Like we were covering this a while ago, and there wasn't as big of an interest as I see in 2025. Yeah. That's what I noticed.
Yeah, the audience was definitely really involved with it this time. You know, I was just watching their excitement up on the monitor in front of me, and it's just, they were very interested in this and what's going on, and I can't wait to see where this platform goes. I mean, they're in the 3rd generation now, which means they're working on the 4th generation. I can't wait to see where the next revision of this tech is going to take us.
Well, maybe Daryl Zernick will work with David to bring the price points down to the consumer, and that may expedite it getting out with a lower price point for everybody.
Stranger things have happened, my friend.
Oh, you ain't kidding, Daryl. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
We've got a couple other stories to hit on. We've talked a lot more about this, which means, Mike, all the content I have that I was going to be talking about today, we get to use for tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yes,
So,
except some of the stuff we do need to go ahead and cover on this. A couple of things we said we were going to talk about today. First of all, how do we get into this? Yes, things are changing in the Pentagon, Mike. They're completely changing in a way that we never thought we would possibly be hearing. Not only are we getting the Department of Government Efficiency being brought in by, I've got a quote here, I think, from Pete Hegseth talking about they're actually trying to clean up the swampiness of the Pentagon. They want to pass their audit, which they haven't passed in too many years to count.
Not only too many years, but you and I have covered this for a long time now. They also have over $22 trillion of missing money.
Yeah.
Right. That still hasn't been explained. So
no, it hasn't.
Maybe this is a step in the right direction.
Oh, I think it is, Mike, on that note. I've got a video for our folks to go ahead and watch. Let me go ahead and bring this one up. Where is it at? Desktop. And I will get to you shortly, Ashley. Hold on. Let's get to this video clip here first. Video full guest. All right, here we go. Let me hide ourselves and let's play this clip. Here we go. We got Pete Hegseth talking about a Pentagon audit.
That includes a Pentagon audit, which to the Marines out there, y'all got to figure it out. And we appreciate that. Lean and mean. We are going to focus heavily to ensure that at a bare minimum, by the end of 4 years, the Pentagon passes a clean audit. The American taxpayers deserve that. They deserve to know where their $850 billion go, how it's spent, and make sure it's spent wisely. It used to be that if you called for an audit, somehow you were undermining the department. I believe the exact opposite. I believe we are accountable for every dollar we spend, and every dollar of waste we find or redundancy is a dollar we can invest somewhere else, as President Trump has committed directly to rebuilding our nation's military. So rebuilding our military is key. That includes a Pentagon.
There you go, Mike. That's something we've been wanting to hear for the longest time. We know that our military has not been able to pass an audit. We've talked about these off-the-books black programs that are out there. They're taking the money, using it for this potential UFO research, but there's been no accountability at all, has there?
No, are you kidding me? This is going on many years. There hasn't been any explanation. There's been nothing but cover-up from the Pentagon, the DOD. And now there's going to be a direct reckoning, it seems like.
Yeah.
Throughout all of the cabinet for President Trump is looking to bear down on exposing all of this. And we have been seeing this play out in real time, like with the U.S. aid information that's come out.
The billions of dollars that have been wasted. Oh my God, it's crazy. I never thought it would get to that point. You know, and there are things going on now, things being brought out that was never on my bingo card. I have to tell you the truth, this whole U.S. aid thing. We did learn today that $1 billion that former President Joe Biden was going to hold back from Ukraine to keep his son from being investigated. That was actually $1 billion coming from U.S. aid. So yeah, there's a long amount of cover-ups that have been going on, a lot of money just wasted, and it's fun to see how it goes, no matter how it happens.
Oh, absolutely it is. And I think this is really just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, I know. The amount that the Democrats, senators, and House representatives are screaming, you know they're onto something good.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, without a doubt.
No,
and this is just beginning. It's like the fires in California. It's going to be sweeping through Washington, and you ain't seen nothing yet.
Oh, it's just starting. It is. Yeah, they were funding the BBC. They were funding all the immigrants coming into, what do you call it? Yeah, the United Kingdom. You've got, what's to the west? My mind cannot think right now. You've got Ireland. And they were handling all the resettlement of all these people in Ireland, and they're out of money and they shut down. Things are changing around the world for all that dirty money that's being spent in ways that we have so many people we have to take care of here. Sometimes we have to worry about ourselves before we worry about the world, right?
Oh, absolutely. America first, which is the platform of President Trump.
Yeah, let's help the citizens in North Carolina, down in Georgia, California, all the different places that need help. There's just a lot of stuff that's going on now about I think this is a quote coming from Trump talking about actually bringing in the Department of Government Efficiency in on the White House. I mean, in on the DOD. Let me see if this is it. Don't kill me if this is the wrong one, but I think this is going to be it. Here we go.
Well, quickly to follow up on what Peter was asking, have you directed Elon Musk to review Pentagon spending, given it's the biggest discretionary spending
Yes,
in
I
the
have
federal
Pentagon,
budget?
education, just about everything. We're going to go through everything, just as it was so bad with what we just went through with this horrible situation we just went through. And I guess 97% of the people have been dismissed. It was very, very unfortunate. You're not going to find anything like that, but you're going to find a lot. And I've instructed him to go check out education, to check out the Pentagon, which is the military. And, sadly, you'll find some things that are pretty bad. But I don't think proportionally you're going to see anything like that.
Yeah, Mike, I wonder if they're going to find Trump some new gold toilet seats.
I don't know. I think he's looking to remove the golden toilet seats from the Pentagon.
Yeah.
They have been spending money like that for way too long, Thomas.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And we're not doing this to go ahead and do partisan politics. No, this is what's going on in the United States government. And if it comes together for disclosure, don't forget, we potentially have an announcement coming from, Annapolina Luna next week. But it could have, it's not just going to deal with UFOs. It could have something to go along with it, maybe. We'll see. But it could have something to do with the Kennedy files, and also former Senator Marco Rubio, who's our Secretary of State, who's taken over the Department of Government Efficiency. Actually, he's taken over the
National Archives.
I was going to get to the National Archives. He took over United States USAID. He took over that platform. He's in charge of that now, and he's also now in charge of the National Archives. Not just, the timing is there, but if I get to this next tweet to go ahead and bring it up, let me bring it up here. Here we go, Mike. Coming from Shadow of Ezra, the long-awaited JFK files are about to be released by the Director of National Intelligence. Wonderful. It has officially, our new DNI has officially delivered a plan to the White House in accordance with Trump's executive order. Donald Trump has made it clear that redactions are no longer consistent with the public interest. For those people out there who were thinking about what's going on with the Kennedy files, it's going to be a bunch of blank pieces of paper. Apparently, they want to have nothing redacted. The files are expected to expose the names of the agency employees, intelligence assets, sources, and methods still used by U.S. spies today, as well as classified covert operations that are still active. Wow.
Right. And we're talking about it's over 62 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is more than a lifetime for some people.
Yeah, but you know what? The UFO cover-up has been going, 77, 80 years at this point?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, you're right about that.
And actually, the start of the deep state all happened around the time that right after the Roswell crash. We got the Air Force, we got the CIA, and the other agencies who were brought together. Then we got the National Security Act, not that much longer. And then a couple years later, we got the Atomic Energy Act. All these things that went in here, taking all this information, locking away from the public, and turning us into basically the national security state of America.
Exactly. No, I agree. But it looks like after all this time that it's coming apart.
Oh, it is. And I'm looking forward to my friend. All right. Let's see which one I want to get here. We got Elizondo talking about DOGE. All right, I've got a couple clips. I've got a clip here of Lou Elizondo talking on the Sean Ryan podcast. Not sure if anyone out there has caught that one yet. In this one clip, we've got Lou Elizondo tell Sean Ryan that Trump may sign an executive order authorizing the shoot down of drones. You know, we had that drone issue that went on the East Coast of the United States, going from November 16th, 18th, all the way through towards the end of the year. We had that whole thing going on for a period of time that was captured the interest of America. It's we also had the issues going with Langley Air Force Base, and we've got other videos, which we're not going to have time to show today, where there were actually out in Wyoming, where Lou Elizondo lives. I guess they had some kind of drones or UAP that were over a nuclear power, over one of their power plants, that actually, after the people who were observing the drones drove away, those drones actually tailed the vehicle for like 30 miles. So that doesn't sound like an average drone, does it, Mike?
No, none of this sounded average since we began covering this on November 18th to now.
Yeah.
It still isn't, because even with all of what the current administration is doing, we still haven't gotten any direct answers on this drone issue at all.
Not at all, my friend.
It seems like we got more questions than answers, which is strange.
Right. So let's jump onto this one right here of Lou talking about using EMP weapons or something for bringing down drones that are in the places they shouldn't be. You know, our government has been acting, I'll use the word, Mike, weak.
Yeah, it's a good word.
We've been very weak in how we've been dealing with these incursions going over our military air bases, over our military assets. More than that, Mike, let's just say, how about over our homeland? Let's just take it out of worrying about what's over the military. But what about the stuff that's over my house or your house or other places that doesn't belong there?
Oh, look at what was going on in Jersey. I mean, we covered these people civilians in their homes. They had these objects flying overhead. There was even one instance in New Jersey where a woman in her late 60s had one of these objects right outside her bathroom window at night.
Yeah.
And then it returned. So what are they doing? Why is the government authorizing these objects over our continental United States and restricted airspace? I don't know. I wish we did know.
Yeah.
That's something we were waiting for answers on, still are.
Maybe it's the giant spiders, the 10-foot tall ones we've talked about in the past. Maybe they're back in numbers. You never know. Let's get to this video.
No, you never know.
You never know. Yeah, that's an old story we've had here in Disclosure tonight. People were talking. Yeah, let's jump on that one. Let's get out of this video clip of Lou Elizondo talking on the Sean Ryan podcast about how we're going to potentially handle some drones in the future. Here we go.
And there's lots of different possibilities, and we really need to consider them all.
I don't understand why we wouldn't have used one of those directed EMP weapons.
Brother, we could have, and we should have, and we didn't. And this is my point. It is so ridiculous, and all it takes is someone in the administration say, FAA. Look, I will tell you, when I was in Pentagon, I was part of a working group, the U.S. Air Domain Working Group, and it was co-sponsored by the FAA and Department of Homeland Security, DHS. And even when I was there, like 2013 and 2014, they were still arguing who was responsible for what. When you say, okay, who's responsible for drones? No one wanted to accept it. It's ridiculous. And this is why I think the president, you're going to see probably some maybe executive orders come out saying from now on, okay, you're going to do this. And if there's a drone in the sky, the buck stops with you. And yes, you can shoot it down. If it's not ours and we're not squawking, then shame on you, zap it. If it turns out to be a government contractor, well, you should have listed your flight path. Sorry, your $1 million capability crashed. That was your fault, not mine. Yeah. So, yes, we do have the capability. Very easy to do that.
Mm-hmm. So we've had the capability, but we haven't been using it, which just doesn't make sense, does it, Mike? Why would we let this stuff go out there and be unchallenged in our own airspace? I don't get it.
No, listen, we talked about this repeatedly as this was going on, and still is till today, by the way, even though mainstream media seems to have dropped the ball on it lately. But these, as Lou referred to it, potentially government contractors, maybe, they are putting these objects out over civilian airspace like major international airports and shutting everything down.
Yep.
Shutting down medical emergency transport flights. And this is what? Authorized? None of this makes any sense. It just really doesn't.
God, there was a senator that I replied back to who was up on, they had a recent hearing on this. And he was trying to say, you know, they didn't, you know, it was all, you know, fantasy, that they didn't shut down any airports. They didn't do anything. It's all in people's heads on this. Clearly that guy is, if you want to call it, getting paid off by the deep state.
Oh, yeah. Plus, we had the official spokesman, Admiral John Kirby, telling everybody in the public the same exact thing, if you remember. We covered that, too.
Mm-hmm.
We're imagining this. It's, what did he say? It's commercial flights. It's not anything mysterious or anomalous. These are things that people are imagining. So that was a direct insult to the intelligence of the American people.
Yeah.
So
we want to see it, but
yeah, absolutely, Mike. You know, it's just one of those things. We want to see the truth. We want to see the facts, and we're tired of the politicians treating us like a mushroom, meaning keeping us in the dark and being fed nothing but bullshit.
Which is a good fertilizer. And you're right. Yeah. But now it looks like that's going to change.
Yeah.
And we're going to get some truth and transparency along the way.
Oh, yeah. Talking about transparency, maybe not for us, but for Julian Dory. Lou Elizondo was also on the Julian Dory podcast today. Man, he has been making the rounds again, Mike.
Oh, yeah, he is. So I like the points that he made in the last clip that we showed, where he said that at this point, doesn't matter if you're a government contractor, if you're not properly identifying yourself, if you are hiding and getting away anonymously, you're going to get shut down.
Yeah.
And then you're out $1 million or more. That's on you. He was right. Good point.
Bring it on, my friend. It should have been that way forever, honestly.
No, absolutely. Look, when they first started flying mysteriously over restricted airspaces in New Jersey, and nobody had a clue as to who they are, where they're coming from, what this is all about.
Yeah.
They should have just started shooting them down pretty quickly.
Kind of like when we had that first Chinese balloon and was first seen over Alaska, and they knew where it was going to go. Do you think Trump would have? Do you think our current president would have let that fly across the whole United States and finally go ahead and shoot it down over the Atlantic? I don't think so.
No, hell no. But did you hear that of the mystery drones that we were covering, one of them came down over Langley?
I did not hear that.
Yes. One of them came down over Langley when they were doing an incursion over Langley Air Force Base. And the last administration did not want the public to know that.
Yeah, I saw.
Now the question is, why would they be hiding this if it's a contractor and if it's authorized?
Bingo. Well, when they actually shut down Langley, they had a move that was there F-35s or F-15s or F-22s, something like that. They had to move them down to the Oceana base out of Langley.
And yes, that's right. They did. They had to evacuate their high-ticket assets because of these incursions that at the time were unknown.
Yep.
And now we're hearing that they were actually authorized by the federal government.
Yep.
Who knew?
Oh, exactly. Well, we know somebody did, and they were hiding it from the public as usual.
Yeah, but again, we keep making the same points. Why? What were these objects all about?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was widespread. We covered this. They were occurring all across the continental United States, like that Chinese balloon did.
Yep.
They were in the West Coast, the East Coast, over other airspace, other restricted airspace. It wasn't stopping. So if you remember, we brought up the idea that they may have been looking for something.
Yeah.
Could be some a nuclear material that might have gone missing. Now, I think we at least have some more of an answer to realize it had nothing to do with any of that.
Exactly. Before I get into the next piece, we do have a couple people in the back with their hands up. First, Ashley, and then Corporal Abe.
Oh my
Ashley?
goodness, you guys have no idea how excited I am that they're doing this. So I have a couple of comments. Lou Elizondo vouched for Tulsi Gabbard today on the Julian Dory podcast. I don't know if that was
She's a
something
wonderful person. My goodness. I've always liked Tulsi since the first time I saw her. You know, I was hoping they would have picked her for VP. I'm actually glad they didn't, because now we get her as a director of national intelligence and she can do her job.
Absolutely. And on top of it, if Bobby Kennedy Jr. gets in, of course, the JFK files are important to him because that's family.
Yep.
And so if you know anything about me, I originally got into the UAP topic for disclosure of what the Americans are spending their tax dollars on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that back in, when was it, 1992, they had the Kennedy assassination record collection that they were supposed to release by 2017, and it didn't happen because they said that there were still people that were alive that were important to not releasing certain information. I don't know how many people can be alive to this day.
Like one, maybe, but I think there may have been reasons beyond that, because it's going to make the CIA and other parts of our government look really dirty.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of which, I found this really cool website, and I meant to send it to you, but X wouldn't let me send it for some reason, but it's usaspending.gov. And I highly insist, if you're interested in checking out like any companies you may be suspicious of that are receiving our taxpayer money, go ahead and check that website out. It's amazing.
Yeah, let me see if I can find one here. I had it here in my... Did I lose that? I couldn't have lost that. I had it...
The White House speaker did mention that Politico was on there too, and that's part of the reason they found Politico, and that's one of the media companies that has received a ton of money.
Political, BBC, all these different news agencies that are out there. But more importantly, now Julian Dory, Jesse Michaels had posted this earlier today. He took it down, but someone took a screenshot of it out there. Let me go ahead and bring this up. Not quite sure why he took it down, because this is Julian saying it, not me. We're just reporting on the news here. Let me bring this one up here. All right. So turns out the reporter that used David Grush's combat-related PTSD to discredit his UFO whistleblower claims was a bought and paid-for shill brought to you by USAID. Here it shows the Intercept Media tax year 2023 Ken Klippenstein getting $208,790. So this is the guy who went up against Grush and tried to bury his reputation. Was this guy on the payroll for that? We don't know, but it's one of those things you have to scratch your heads on and say, could it be? Possibly. Maybe it is.
Well, when there's a huge correlation like that, what else are you supposed to think?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I actually had that, was it usaspending.gov, right? I had that open on another window that I shut down before the show started. But yeah, there's a lot of great places to see it. Even for our friends in Canada, there was another funding website that got brought out that showed where all their money was going internationally. And the Canadian government took the website down because they didn't want people to see, oh gosh, we have that up there. It's not going to look good for us, but it is what it is. Thank you for your comments, Ashley. Do you have something else you want to say?
I was trying to think of the website that also you can use to find out where each candidate gets their funded money from, like the PACs and things like that. It's like Follow the Money or
Open Secrets.
Yes, Open Secrets. That's another good website if you guys are curious on looking at that information.
This is something we're going to cover more here, because this is one of those stories that captivates everybody. It doesn't matter if you're on the right or the left. There's a lot of dirty pool that's been going on from the governments behind the scene. And finally, we're getting the level of transparency we all deserve and have wanted for the longest time.
Well, and if you think about it, this is our beginning steps to releasing the true UAP information, because UAP and ET, that's a huge, significant change for humanity.
Oh,
So
yeah.
first we need to clear up our government and aim to help the people before we can release the information for the UAP community. And I know how bad we can taste it, but without us pursuing that information first, it's kind of hard to get to the really deep, interesting, intriguing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
I would agree with Ashley, and I'll make a quick point.
Go ahead, take a mic.
It's what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Classic question. But in this context, it's obvious to me that we have the UAP subject, which became publicly known in 1947, Roswell, New Mexico. And then we had the first Secretary of Defense for the United States, James Forrestal, who mysteriously got shoved out of a small window on the 11th floor of a hospital that he was against his will sequestered to, and died crashing to the ground. And then we had President Kennedy, who was trying to work with the Russians during the space race, during the height of the Cold War. A lot of people at the time were not aware of that, but he was trying to negotiate peace. And in the late 50s, Russia was ahead of us in regards to their space technology. He was trying to work with, not against. And people within our government were not happy about that. But then, of course, as we are now all aware of, the UAP topic was known by Russia and the United States during the height of all of this, which means he was looking into this, President Kennedy. And what happened? Well, he suffered the same fate as Secretary Forrestal, and now he's dead. And it seems like this cover-up is far-reaching into politics, government, and it all stems from them trying to hide advanced technology from off-world that they don't want anyone to know of, and that's what this is all about. So yeah, I think UAP is at the heart of this entire issue the whole time.
Absolutely, Mike. You know, and it's interesting to see that Forrestal has met the same fate as so many Russian oligarchs in recent days, as in recent years, where they magically fall out of a window to their death. As my lower back reminds me, hey, you've been sitting in that chair too long. We got Corporal Abe and Sarah for Last Hands Up tonight.
Hey, thanks, Thomas. I wanted to circle back to what Mike D was talking about with the drones in Langley. Mike, did you see that there were two interesting points that I found? One landed and they ran up to it and it was capable of taking off right before they could actually jump on it or shoot it or disable it. And then second, they said that they recovered one, but it was so badly damaged that they couldn't tell what it was. Now, we recover black boxes that are pretty badly fucked up, and they can't tell what's going on with this drone that's better than a DJI. I'm so confused, and it's Langley, so there's some really weird reports coming out right now. But I just wanted to touch on that.
It's lies, my friend. It's a cover up. We actually got a video of Tim Burchett, but we'll play that tomorrow, Mike. Sarah, your hand is up.
Yeah, so I just hopped back on, but let's say DOGE gets to the bottom of DOGE gets to the bottom of what the Pentagon spending money on it. Let's say they find out they're spending money on back engineering, off-world craft, etc. Do they disclose this, or do they does it become a national security issue and they choose not to disclose this? What do you think happens? Because I would imagine that Elon Musk would be extremely interested in
I think they're going to let Trump know, and Trump's going to probably say, tell the public. We'll find out.
Oh, I would agree with that statement, and I'll tell you why. Because it's already come out publicly from testimony of David Grush, Lou Elizondo, anybody that was inside the government and aware of what the government knows and the public does not. And we already know that the Pentagon knows exactly where the reverse engineering craft are, the biological bodies. They know the street address where they're keeping this material. If President Trump is aware of that information that the government already has, I have a feeling, Thomas is right, that he's going to make that public.
He's going to make it public and make a
out.
parade out of it, I probably. Make sure everybody knows.
Listen, the issue and one of the stumbling blocks that we've been up against the entire time is that any elected official does not want to violate national security. And we know the old rallying cry. Well, if we make it public, then we'll let our enemies know. And this is a national security issue. A lot of elected officials are former military. They have a very strong national security belief. And they usually erred on the side of caution and kept most of this information from the public routinely.
Yeah.
I have a strong feeling that President Trump isn't going to give a fuck about national security at this point.
No. You know, look at all the money that was detailed in the USAID information that's been put out there in the public. How many billions of those dollars were actually funding CIA covert programs to destabilize governments and do other nasty things that we shouldn't be doing?
Well, it's funny that you mention that, because as it turns out, now that we're going down this particular rabbit hole with USAID, which is a CIA front, it turns out that the impeachment process that began against President Trump during his first term back in 2019, oh, wait, that was funded by USAID. Small world.
Oh.
Now we know why he's going after them with a vengeance.
Yeah. Oh.
Revenge.
Department by department. I think they had, 10,000 employees, and they're down to less than 300 at this point, doing some change.
Did you get the chance to show this video of them tearing the sign down?
Oh, I didn't show that one. Let's see if I've got.
Oh, you got it.
I thought I bookmarked that one earlier today. No, not that one. All right, here we go. We got two videos today from the offices of USAID. Let me go ahead and share these people for our audience who hasn't seen this yet. These are good ones. Here we go. The first video we have, they're taking the sign that's on the door and they're covering it up with black tape. But the next one's even better. They're taking the letters off of the building. Put this back up. There we go. U.S. Agency 4. They're taking them down one by one by one. Covered up black tape on the sign. And just saying now it's just U.S. Customs and Border Protection.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, there it is. Here's another one with the final product. Looks much better that way, I think.
Oh, yeah. Burned to the ground.
Yeah.
Gutted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there may have been some humanitarian things that this stuff was going on, but you know what? Let's worry about the stuff that's going on here in this country first. And then if we have some money left over, then we can start spreading it around everywhere.
Right. But that was a cover story as far as any humanitarian aid. And now that's all, the truth is all coming out. This was a deep state government operation from the Central Intelligence Agency that's been operating for decades, including funding Operation Mockingbird, which controlled and paid off mainstream media to give propaganda that the government wanted the public to
What
hear.
was the one company who was getting paid for a media deception operation?
It was Politico, wasn't it?
No, it was either Political or it was another one. Maybe it was. We'll cover that one tomorrow. On that note, my back is saying I'm done. Stick a fork in me. I'll stick a fork in me myself and say that I am done. My back is screaming at me, so I need to go ahead and get out of this comfortable chair that's usually so comfortable that after 2 hours hits, I'm done. But you know what? It's been a great show. On that note, I want to. Actually, we got a couple people with their hands up really quick in the back. Ashley and then Nick, and then we're done. Let's get through this quickly, please. Here we go.
Just really quick, another thing about Tulsi Gabbard, speaking of stumbling blocks, is a big stumbling block for her in her confirmation hearing had to do with Edward Snowden, because she refused to say that he was a traitor. And in my humble opinion, that means that she is for disclosure. So
Yep.
there you go.
Absolutely. Thank you. Great point, Ashley. And last person with their hand up is Nick. Go ahead.
Me?
Yeah, your hand's up.
Oh yes. Did you?
We lost what you were saying, Nick.
Did anyone else see that Timber Chat is apparently going to meet with the Trump administration about UAPs?
Yes, we'll be talking about that tomorrow, Nick. Great point, though. Give something good for our audience to look forward to tomorrow. On that note, I want to thank everybody for coming out to this episode of Disclosure tonight. What a great time to hang out with friends. What a great show we've had. I want to thank everybody for your wonderful super chats tonight. Who am I talking about? Well, let me bring up the list and thank everybody if I can. Oh, I missed some too. Let's go in reverse order. Mr. Catfish 2100, thank you very much. Charles Kerr, apparently you still love Firefly. Tamisha Bertrand, thank you very much. Kane Northrup, appreciate the super chat. Charles Kerr, there you go. Again, Rebecca Curry, thank you very much, Rebecca. Charles Kerr again, and Ashley from the back, thank you very much. Anonymous Rex, really dug the conversation. And then more importantly, I also want to thank FaZe Will for starting off tonight's super chats. I would say goodnight to everyone in the chat. Goodnight to everyone in the chat. I'm not going to read your names because my back is killing me. I want to thank everybody who has been in the back for the conversation tonight. Mike, it's great having you around here, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Thomas. It was a great show. The good guests, good information. And I think we're at the beginning of this rabbit hole that we're going to cover. So it's going to be fun.
You better believe it, my friend. And on that note, as we usually say at the end of every episode of Disclosure tonight, eyes open, no fear, be safe, everybody, but
go back to Party City where you belong.
Absolutely. We'll catch you on the flip side. Good night, everybody. See you tomorrow, 2 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. London time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.